Good morning and welcome. Patriot Radio News Hour. I'm Joe Jaquin, CEO of the Patriot Trading Group, and welcome to Thursday. I hope it finds you well out there. Another great day here in the Valley of the Sun. The weather's actually getting pretty spectacular. We had rain in the forecast. We've got a cooling front. I mean, yesterday I got home. We had the windows open. It was probably about 95 degrees or so, which I know that sounds hot, but not here. Here, the 95 is absolutely gorgeous. So get out there and enjoy it. Any of you here, get out on the golf course and bang that ball around. I know I'm going to try to. I'm going to try to get that done this weekend as well. 800-951-0592. That is our toll-free number. If you don't know it by now, and I know you do, legal, lawful, constitutional tender. It is what we do. Talking about gold and silver, I mean, it's biblical. The only, and it's so funny about money. What is money? Here in the United States, money is now just a figment of our imagination. We can just make it up out of thin air. Does that sound valuable to anybody? Well, here's the thing. We can't make it up out of thin air. No, of course not. No, the bankers get to make it up out of thin air. We have no say whatsoever. It really, when you think about it, is absolutely crazy. We have no way to stop it. I mean, we can vote in and vote out whoever we'd like. We don't get to vote on who controls our money. We don't get a say on who the next Federal Reserve president is going to be. We don't get to say, hey, you know what? We don't think money printing is a good idea. Right? And then not only do they get to print whatever amount of money they want to print, then they charge us interest for it. Right? I mean, really, when you think about it, right? I mean, you think about all the debt that they sell, right? There's an interest rate to be paid. I know I didn't vote for anybody to have that set up. And it's all about brainwashing. It's all about lamping all of us. It's all about misconception. It's all about what? Forcing down things that really aren't true. There is no need for a central bank. There is none. But yet, you know what? You would think if you talk to people, oh, no, God, we have to have it. Now they're actually convincing us that inflation is a good thing. Well, a little bit of inflation. Just a little bit until it isn't. Well, don't worry, it won't last that long. I beg to differ. I hope all of you understand what's happening, and you don't. I'll just tell you right now, you absolutely don't, because you know what? Not even I can understand it. But as we sit here and we watch, listen, it all sounds great. I told you today I was going to give you some good news. It sounds really good. Jay Powell's out there talking in front of the banking committee, and it was funny as I watched. I actually punished myself. So there's your good news. I punished myself today by listening to Jay Powell testify in front of the banking committee. The good news was there were some good questions. There was some that said, hey, wait a minute. You know, after you made us bail out all these banks, we put in all these rules and we put in all these regulations to try to protect the taxpayer. And you've started to just weaken all of them. And one person asked the question, can you give me one example, just one, where you made regulations tougher on these institutions? And of course, there wasn't one. It didn't exist. But of course, we were just clarifying things. clarifying, please. Listen, here's the realities. We're already bankrupt. Okay? Now, I know, well, that's not good news. You're right, it's not. And we allowed the bankers to do it because everything they told us sounds good, doesn't it? Oh, if we just take interest rates to zero for just a little while, it'll make things better. Hey, if we just create $8 trillion out of thin air, it'll make things better. But we'll just do it for a little while, right? And then, we'll pay it back, a little bit. Maybe. Well, maybe not. And if we just spend a little more money. Now, here's the problem. The definition of a little more money, it used to be like $10 billion was a little more money. Then it was $100 billion. Then it was $1 trillion. Now it's $3.5 trillion. We just spend a little. And think about it. Listen, look at all the good we're going to do. Today, we're going to send out checks to 65 million households and give them $300 for every kid they got. Well, 300, 250 to 300, depending on the age. But doesn't that sound good? There's good news right there. Hey, 65 million households got a check today from the government for doing nothing. This doesn't make that money they got actually worth. How about nothing? Because that's what it's going to be. Patriot Radio News Hour. We'll be back right after the break. 800-951-0592. Patriot Radio News Hour. Joe Jaquin here. Jay Powell testifying again today. Gold surging yesterday on the... Really, here's the reality. Gold going back to the end of the third quarter last year got to almost $2,100. Right now, gold sits at $1,827. Let's make it easy math, okay? Let's just say 18 and a quarter. So you're like, well, it went from 2,100 to 18 and a quarter. And again, that's paper gold. Just, I want to throw that caveat in there. So it fell 275 points, or dollars, if you will. Now at the low, gold got down to, $1,670. And think about it. So in less than a year, about the last, let's say 8 months, gold at one point lost $430 from its high. It's at $275 right now, so it's coming back again. But what was the premise? Why did that happen? Well, and a lot of it is based on the central bank comes out and lies to the public. And lie is the word I want to use. And I'll call them mainstream media because I don't know what else to call them. We have very, very few choices when it comes to media. And I got bad news for everybody. It's getting less and less. And guess what? Just like banks, less and less banks. Think about the fact we have lost thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of banks. Well, we've lost in this country about 14,000 banks in the last 40 years. And if you wanted to look at recent times, to give perspective on this, the Federal Reserve has approved 3,576 bank mergers in the last 15 years. Let me say it again, 3,576 banks gone, because that's what a merger is, We're eliminating 3,576 banks, which, by the way, was almost half the banks that still existed. At 15 and a half years ago, we had about 8,000 banks. Now we got about 4,000 banks. Do you know how many they denied? Because you would think not all mergers can be good for us. I mean, this can't be. Right? I mean, when you handle it, like, you know what? That's probably going to lead to higher fees, less choice, right? Blah, blah, blah. 3,576 approvals. They've denied 0. I mean, it almost defies logic. Right? That and you know, right there, that's all. If you don't believe anything else, that's the facts. They're not here for us. This is a major consolidation of power, a major consolidation of wealth. And we have no say in this whatsoever. Why are they consolidating? Well, look at it this way. You know, and I like to use the fist example. We talk about oppressive regimes and things of that nature, and how do they hold on to power, right? Well, they use violence. Right? They go out and arrest people and murder people and kill people. Right? I'm not doing a show to tell you that that's what the central banks do, but they, believe me, they're behind the murdering and the killing, but that's for a different show. See, they've dug this hole. They know they're in trouble. Oh, believe me. They know what they've done. Of course, they're trying to say other people have done it, right? We're just the good guy, right? They want to be the guy in the white hat. We're trying to help everybody. Sounds good, but it's a lie. We're not trying to help you or me. We're trying to help their system, which they have us convinced is the oldie system. It's not true. 3,576 less banks, lost half our banks in 15 years, not one denial. Oh yeah, approved. Just makes what? Makes the system even more fragile. And we're sitting here and we're watching all of this. And you're looking at the bank, and I look at it like a fist. Right? And they're trying to keep this control, and they're closing that fist. And all this stuff, all this debt is oozing out of the fist, like slime, just coming out and falling off, and it's all over the place. And that's what we're dealing with right now. You know, and they talk about, you know, oh, well, it's temporary, or it's this, or it's that. Oh, don't worry. Everything's going to be wonderful. And we look at gold, and how did gold fall? Well, and again, remember how I said it was paper gold that fell. Physical gold, physical silver. So hard to get. Listen, we've been around 25 years. I've never seen anything like it. Go back to like the financial crisis. Go back, you know, as a country, I'll give you a really great example. Ever since we started minting silver eagles again, by and large, from 1986 to about 2004, we minted, you know, the low year 1996, about 3 million. Between 3 to 7 million ounces of silver a year. Just what it was. Last year, as an example, they minted over 30 million. But because of COVID, they couldn't do more. But we've minted 50 million ounces a couple of different times. After the financial crisis hit and the housing bubble crashed, the lowest mintage year we've ever had, I want to say it was like 18 million. Okay, so think about this. We went, let's call it 20 years. Well, 30 years. No, I'm sorry. I had it right the first time. 20 years. So let's say from 86 to 06, 3 to 7 million. And now we're taking, right, a bad year was like 18 million. 30, 40, 50 million ounces. And now they're trying to convince us we've been in this silver shortage for what now? What are we going on now? 15, 16, 17 months later, we still have the same problem. What, you're telling me that they can't make 50 million ounces of silver? We've done a bunch of times. 40 million? 45 million? Of course they can. There's only one reason why they wouldn't. Because it doesn't exist. They can't buy enough. Of course, that's not what the paper markets would lead you to believe. But gold's the same way. But anyway, on paper, why did it fall on paper? Because they want to believe. Because their whole life is based upon the debt system. Think about what they did. They took away our pensions. They created credit cards. It's fascinating that people don't remember. Go back to the 70s. No one had a credit card. They didn't exist. Student loan didn't exist. And ever since the bank got full control, these bankers got full control, all as they've done is blow everything up. A Corvette was like $3,000. Let's go crazy. You loaded it up, $4,000. I mean, what's a Corvette today? 120 grand, right? A house, 25 grand. What's a house today? Well, 500 grand. This is what they've done. That's not prosperity. How's that prosperity? They want you to believe that that's prosperity. You used to go to work for companies. Jobs that they convinced us we didn't want anymore. You went to work for Ford, General Motors, GE, Motorola, right? Companies like that. And you worked there your whole life. Graduated high school, and you went to work. They paid well, and things were affordable. But then they created debt. All of a sudden, all of these companies had to what? Pay more. Pretty soon it got to the point we all remember, unions were bad. General Motors were making $28 an hour. Oh my God! Union people are awful. General Motors cry and come. What did they do? Created free trade. Remember, that was for us. That wasn't for us. And they just moved all of these jobs to countries that paid less. And then told us we didn't want those jobs. And we had to be more educated. And voila, here comes student loans. Right? You could go to Harvard. Ben Bernanke went to Harvard. They paid a little over $3,000 a year for him to go to Harvard. He worked a part-time job one summer as a waiter. That was his big experience. Now we're sitting here talking about, hey, you need to be working full-time, making $25 an hour just to rent a two-bedroom apartment. Right in the 80s, making $28 an hour at General Motors, you're solidly in the middle class. Your wife could stay home from work if she wanted to, right? You could pay for your kids to go to college, and then you got a pension when you retire. It's all gone. Now you work at General Motors, and maybe you are making $28 an hour. I don't know if you are, right? For a bunch of years you weren't, right? They started paying us less. There is no pension. What do you have, a 401k? An IRA? They've made us all dependent upon this debt system. Patriot Radio News Hour. It's halftime out of Thursday. Don't touch that dial if you can take it. 800-951-0592, Patriot Radio News Hour. So all this stuff, this debt market stuff, they're bets. It's gambling. And that's probably the best word for it. You know, whether it's a stock or a bond, gold or silver, corn or wheat or soybeans, coffee, rubber, computer chips. They make bets that it's going to be higher or lower. And unfortunately, it used to be, before the central bank took power, that you could think logically and pontificate on where things were headed. Now the bets are placed what? Based on what they think the central bank is going to do. More than anything else. Well, keep going long the stock market because the central bank's not going to fight inflation, as an example. So 9 months ago, 10 months ago, gold starts losing steam because the central bank was telling everybody, oh, everything's going to be great now. Economy's reopening. Yeah, we spent a bunch of money. We created a lot of money out of thin air. The debt is off the charts. We had, at one point, 20-plus million Americans not working yet. Somehow, all the bills got paid. None of the banks. What was 30% of commercial real estate not being paid was okay, you know, right? And people not paying the rent, no, it's fine. No one lost anything. You know, we know that didn't happen. Well, but they got bailed out again. Once again, they bailed them out again, right? And I know we could argue, well, it wasn't their fault in this. I get that side of it. You're right. You make that argument. But still. And they were saying, oh, yeah, it's going to be great. We're going to get great GDP growth. Everyone's going to go back to work, and nothing bad happened. Well, sure. Based on that, yeah, gold should fall. Absolutely. Because why? Gold's a hedge. A hedge against what? Hedge against the dollar. Hedge against the central bank. And it did. And all of a sudden now, what's gold doing? Now it's making it up. Because little by little, they're like, I don't know. That story you told 9 months ago is not looking so hot. Gold got higher, right? Gold got back to $1,900, back to $1,900. And they came out again and said, well, okay, maybe there's going to be a little bit of inflation. It's not going to last very long. Everything's still wonderful, though. Gold went back down to like 1770. And now, of course, here it comes again. Right? Because every time they speak now, they're a little more worried. 6 weeks ago, Jay Powell was saying, well, it's just going to be a little bit. Don't worry, it's going to be fine. In front of Congress over the last 2 days, well, it's a little worse than we thought. It's going to last a little longer than we thought. But, you know, it's still going to be fine. Gold keeps creeping up and creeping up. because it's not true. And this has created this huge problem. I'll use J.P. Morgan as the example. They're the largest bank, I think, I don't know, maybe one of the Chinese banks. Largest bank in the United States for sure. They're the biggest. Look at what they're doing with their money. They're not buying any debt. Well, I shouldn't. That's a lie. They are buying some. But they're hoarding hundreds of billions of dollars because they don't believe Jay Powell. They don't believe the central bank. They already know. They just don't want to tell us. How come we haven't heard about the strike at Frito-Lay? How come we haven't heard about the strike at Volvo? How come we haven't heard about the strike at Smithfield Foods? Because they don't want you to know. BlackRock, $10 trillion. Now it's debt. But they really don't have anything. That's the funny part. I mean, if nobody pays, BlackRock doesn't have any $1 trillion, right? They got no trillions. What did he say? Not buying it. Matter of fact, we just had to pay everyone 8% more in a single year. Because what do they know? They know if they're willing to give you 8. What's inflation really? 15? Right? And we have no say on this. And I guess what I'm trying to let you understand is we know that they have no more credibility. I mean, really, look at it since the late 90s. That was probably the peak of their control. Bill Clinton was president. Republicans were in charge of Congress. Nothing was getting done. We had a fake budget surplus, right? Because the excess of Social Security, I won't go into all that. But anyway, Alan Greenspan, the maestro, however you want to pronounce it, the maestro, right? He was a god. Here was a guy up until he became Federal Reserve president said, the dollar's going to come to an end. We're going to go back to the gold standard. Then he changed his tune. Of course, now he's back on our team again. But he promised us, hey, here's how we're going to avoid the pitfall. We're going to pay off the national debt by 2010. All the interest we save, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, are going to be fixed. And everything's going to be great. Man, didn't that sound good? Of course, we had the tech bubble, and it blew up. Right now, think about Jay Powell today. Fast forward to today. Hey, everything's going to be okay. We're not paying off any debt. Matter of fact, we're going to add a lot more to it. But, we're talking about, sometime, years from now, when they do something. Are you going to prepare? Yes or no, right? Patriot Radio News Hour. We'll be back right after the break. 800-951-0592. Gold went to $250 an ounce because Alan Greenspan said we're going to pay off the national debt by 2010. Gold went to new all-time highs, about $1,054 after the housing crisis. Went to $700 because they were going to fix it, right? Oh, don't worry, we fixed it. It's the first time we saw interest rates at zero. Remember? Quantitative easing became a new word. One of these new tools that they pretend to have. They always pretend they got a new tool. It's the same tool, just a different name. Went to 1900 on the financial crisis. Of course, remember now, they always said that wasn't going to happen. Oh, that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Right? Remember that I did the shows where I was reading you what Ben Bernanke was saying. Oh, it's just a subprime problem. Oh, there's just a little froth in the housing market. Oh, no, the banks are in great shape. Everything's well contained. Of course, because of that, gold went back to 1,050 during Janet Yellen, as she was trying to say, oh, yeah, no, it's wonderful. Now, remember, debts are spiraling. We couldn't remember GDP. We could never get above 2% GDP. Remember, right? 3% was like some mythical unicorn creature, but it was fine. And then people started to doubt that it was fine. Gold started moving higher again. Right? And then all of a sudden, COVID hits. And gold jumps to 2,100. But then they tell us and again, it's a pattern. Oh, it's fine. Every pattern, though, is the same. The debt doesn't go down. Debt goes up. Interest rates, they're the ones that have gone. They're gone now. Remember in the 80s and the 90s, even when I first started here, you shouldn't own gold because it doesn't pay interest. I wish I could tell you how many of these idiots they still bring out on the TV. They used to say that. Of course, they don't say it anymore because nothing pays interest. Banking is now an expense for us. And we don't even get to own our own money. Think about that. At least before, when you gave away your money, because when you put it in the bank, you don't own it anymore. That's legally the law. At least they paid you interest for it. Because what is the bank going to do with your deposit? They're going to loan it out to somebody else. Every time they tell us they fix it. Now, the debt markets always believe them because they have no choice. And what's happened? Well, let's see. There's a lot less banks. There's a lot less places for us to go. There's a lot more debt. I can't even tell you what's happened to unfunded liabilities. It's not even, we talk about the debt we currently have. You got to remember all the promises of all that stuff. And again, of course, one of my commercials, I educate you. Social Security, Supreme Court's already ruled. Social Security is just a tax. Medicare, Medicaid, that's a tax. Government doesn't have to give us nothing for that. I think that time will come. We're just wiped out. Part of the Great Reset. Right? Social Security, Medicare, it's gone. We'll probably go to some form of universal basic income. Think about today, all these people getting a check. $250, $300 a kid. Why? Well, it's expensive. Can't send your kid to daycare. I got to work. I got to pay for daycare. Right? Most people know how to do that math. Well, let's see. I'm getting $15 an hour. The daycare charges me $10 an hour for my kid. Yeah, after tax, yeah, no thanks. And it used to be, think about this. Before they fully took control in the early 70s, Dad worked. Mom stayed home and raised the kids. Life was grand. We didn't have debt. The national debt in 1971, $400 billion. How many more times do you need to understand what's going to happen? They don't have it fixed. And every time now you're going to hear Jay Powell talk, it's a little hotter than we wanted. It's lasting a little longer, but don't worry, it's contained. Just like housing, subprime, it's contained. Right? It's just a little problem for a little while, but the fundamentals are still solid. The banking industry, no, the banks are fine. Don't worry about it. Bear Stearns CEO goes out on TV, tells you how wonderful all of their portfolio is. 2 weeks later, over the weekend, miraculously, J.P. Morgan owns them for $2 a share. Wall Street's not going to open unless you give the banks $700 billion. Look at $700 billion. That was just like in 2008. What would the number be today? Wall Street won't open unless you give the bank $7 trillion. Gold's going a lot higher as this whole thing plays out. It's the Radio News Hour. Final segment coming up. 800-951-0592. It's like the boy that cried wolf. Over and over and over again. They keep telling us, we fixed it. Whoops, we fixed it. Whoops, we fixed it. And every one of these whoops sends the dollar down, makes everything cost more. And now we're, we lived in this fantasy that they could print money out of thin air and it wasn't going to cause inflation, right? What do they call it? Modern money theory, right? That's gone. That didn't last very long, did it? And now you're seeing the gold markets again keep inching up as the false flag that has been planted by the Federal Reserve turns out to be just that, false. Sounds good. I mean, it sounds great that, hey, this inflation is going to end here real soon. And everything, then we'll be back to fine again. And we're going to taper at some point. I mean, I know our balance sheet's going to be, it's already over $8 trillion. We're on our way to $9 trillion, but it's okay. And the federal debt, we're running $2, $3, $4 trillion deficits. Who cares? Get your gold put away today. Listen, I'm telling you how hard it is. You have no idea the supply side in these markets. It is being bought up by people with a lot more money than you and I could possibly imagine. So today, I've got about 100. These are what we call CU coins in the industry, choice uncirculateds. We ran those the other day. This one's a little more unique. What this is really, picture an almost uncirculated coin, but these ones are really nice. But still not quite good enough to get graded. Got 100. They're all pre-1900. So 1866 up to 1900. They're 1900, pre-1900. So 1900 is the oldest date you're going to get. Or that's the newest date you're going to get. Sorry. All the way to 1866. So these are all pre-1900s. At 21.75. I had those 20s. We were running 20s yesterday on sale at 21.30. I actually just sold them all here in the last half hour. So those are off sale again. Pre-1900. And again, these are going to be choice uncirculated coins. So when you think about, coins that are, 120 to 150 years old, these things are going to really, really great looking material at $2,175. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, and I'm just Gold went from 250 to 1,000, then to 2,000. Every one of these things when they didn't fix it. This is another one. This is, believe me, they already know it as well, too. This isn't transitory. This is the price we're going to pay. $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 gold at a minimum is kind of, I think, just the pattern that we've seen, at least a doubling of the price. So I'm saying at least $4,000 gold at 800-951-0592. CU pre-1900 $20 Liberties at $2,175 today. God bless everybody. We'll be back for one more show tomorrow.